AI is going to revolutionize every sector of society. It's going to allow us to personalize education in a way that we've never been able to do before.
Using artificial intelligence to pinpoint standards and skills that students need to learn, instead of just blanket teaching them grade level standards.
We're on the cutting edge. I think that as a charter school, we are an incubator of innovation, and I think it's imperative that we have the willingness to try new things. The AI is incredibly powerful, and one of the things that allows us to do is to customize the education of the child in a more meaningful or in a deeper way.
Creating those learning plans for 35 individual kids is very time consuming. What we want to do is take that benchmark, run it through the AI, create the individualized plan for each kid, and in under 2 minutes have an entire learning plan for every kid on your roster. That gives them a lot of time back in their day for their students to see them on one-to-one. If you have a student who only likes poetry, it'll give you a poetry on fractions. If you have a student who is a reluctant independent reader, you just give a first name, what their pet's name is, what they like to do. It will write every math problem for that student about them, and what student doesn't like to read about themselves.
AI can remove barriers for children. How many times have you heard a kid say, "I don't know how to do that," and then they stop and they don't move forward? That barrier can be removed by artificial intelligence.
All our stakeholders in terms of how artificial intelligence can benefit students and the personalization of their education. So just wanted to share that with you, and we'll be bringing some different initiatives and things to the board over the coming months with regards to AI. But just on a side note, I met with Power School last week. Our student information system had an opportunity to take a look at their roadmap over the next couple of years and the direction they're going, and it is full of AI. So this is something that is coming, and we need to be prepared. So just wanted to share that with the board.
Thank you. I'm excited about AI, and I really appreciate the way that you're tackling it. It's excellent. Okay, governance. Do we have, let's see, we've got A, which is consideration and possible action on SBCSB charter contract amendment for authorization through June 30th, 2029.
So I can speak to that real quick. This past Monday, we made a request of the State of Alberta Charter School Board. Back in the fall, we had requested a 5-year renewal, and what we received from the State of Alberta Charter School Board was an actual 3-year renewal. And they still had some questions with regards to our accreditation status with the State Department of Education, which was still sort of up in the air at that point. And then there's just been a lot of challenges that we've had over the last 3 to 4 years as we've tried to rebuild trust with the State of Oklahoma, with the State Department, and certainly with the State of Alberta Charter School Board. And we have, since that time, received word from the State Department of Education that our accreditation status was complete and full, and there were no deficiencies. And in addition to that, which is the highest level of accreditation we receive from the State Department of Education. So we were able to sort of check that box, and then Janice presented a couple months ago on our financial audit, which had 0 findings in it. And again, demonstrating progress. And so we've been able to sort of reach these milestones that we felt like it was in the organization's best interest to go back to the State of Alberta Charter School Board and respectfully request a 5-year renewal. And so Justin and Leland went to the SBCSB's building on Monday and made that formal request, and the State of Alberta Charter School Board granted. EPIC, a 5-year renewal, which is a significant milestone for our organization. It is public validation for the people that are sitting here in front of you today, our entire staff. But it also sends a strong message to our students and the families that we serve that we're going to be here long term. And so I just wanted to, before the board considers this, just recognize Dr. Wilkinson, J.C. Seiler here, and then also the members of the statewide virtual charter school board led by Dr. Franklin. Becky, would you and the entire team from the SBCS, would you all please just say your opinions? Jason Seiler. And Seiler has a presentation here coming up where he will actually lay out some of the performance framework and answer the questions that you all have. So just want to sort of let you know what we would be needing with your consideration.
So I need second motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Blum?
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Bella?
Yes.
Okay, we're down to board committee reports. Trevor, do you have anything else?
We met today with Janice and just kind of a introduction meeting, but and explain the process for our new board member, and that's about it. Nothing crazy to report there.
We did meet. We do have some recommendations. You ready for those now?
Next time.
The next item goes up.
So it looks like we have agenda 2C, consideration of possible action on another board term for board member Ginger Casper to start on May 27, 2024 for a 3-year term. I guess we can take a motion.
Yes, put that motion forth, please, and that's our recommendation.
I'll second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Abstain.
Ms. Blum?
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Bella?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's been a challenge and a joy. All right, E, we have presentation of possible discussion regarding statewide virtual charter school board, charter, contract, financial supervision review in school year 2022-23. Performance framework. All right, Skylar, that's a lot.
Just checking. The light wasn't on, so. I got the green light. I got the green light here, so we should be good to go. Wow, what a turnout. Thank you guys.
All for you. All for you.
To learn about compliance and not for the free food. My name is Skylar Lusnia with the statewide Virtual Charter School Board. I am the financial compliance officer, compliance auditor, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm a CPA and a certified internal auditor. And we just, congratulations maybe, Ginger, for your extension there, another 3-year term. I will say that doesn't align with the charter contract term that we just extended to 5 years, but. Just kidding. No, there's a 5-year term would be a long term, even for a board member. So, okay, so we're going to jump into the charter contract financial review results. So first, let's do what is this? So, do I have control, or do I need to ask you? Okay, so just kind of an overview of what the charter contract compliance financial review was. I mean, it's pretty much behind us. We're reviewing the results. I've worked with your team, with your staff, on this, and here's what I did. I took the charter contract, not the one that was just extended that hasn't gone into effect, but the one that is currently in place through June 30th of this year, if I'm not mistaken. And I looked at all of the provisions of the charter contract, and about half of them are financial in some way, shape, or form. They may not be directly financial, but they may impact the money, like maybe facilities related. But we all know facilities cost money, and so I just looked into each of the different categories, and if there was some kind of financial note or tune, then we talked about it. And so these are the 5 categories that those half of the provisions of the charter contract consisted of: facilities, shared services, educational management organizations. Then we have just the general financial group or bucket, and then miscellaneous. And so the objective of this review was to verify the school and this governing board's compliance with the charter contract provisions. And so then we get to the results. If that's too small, I'm sorry, but I do think you have a copy in front of you as well. I think this is the 3rd slide. So what I can say is that I did not find any contract provision to be a does not meets, and nothing was identified as being out of compliance with the terms of the charter contract. So that's a good thing. That means ultimately, I don't call it an audit because it doesn't really meet those criteria. But the procedures that I applied was an auditor doing auditing type things. But the review results were good in that nothing was deemed to be out of compliance. There wasn't anything that I was like, you got to fix this right away. So, in fact, most of the items were meets. But before we get to those things, the things that we're going to highlight in a couple of areas of improvement, let me just say that of those 50% of the total provisions that were financial in nature, which is about 65 or 70 provisions, there were actually only 37 that were applicable to EPIC. And the reason that only 37 of those were applicable is because some of the provisions were for shared services agreements, which EPIC does not have, and some of those provisions were for educational management organizations, which, as you know, EPIC does not have. So that reduced the number of applicable provisions under this review to 37. So now I just want to highlight a couple of areas where I noted, I want to say good things, but sometimes like for an auditor, it's like if I don't see anything, nothing noteworthy, that's noteworthy, right? So I was given great access to records, timely access to records. Anytime I knock on your door, the door is opened and I'm allowed to come in and rifle through documents. I love that. So thank you for that, Janice and your team, and Brandon. I think I knocked on your door a few times as well. So the areas to highlight here are, I did a bank deposit review. I literally sat in a room with your finance people and I said, pull up your bank account and show me your incoming deposits. I mean, it'd be really hard to manifest something different if you're logged into the bank account looking at it at the same time. That's kind of the way I see it. So when doing this review, I saw nothing that looked like any kind of irregularity, and nothing to indicate any kind of commingling. And I think that speaks volumes, especially considering how often EPIC and the word commingling was heard in the same sentence just a few years ago. So you're hearing it in the same sentence now, but it's because I didn't find anything that indicated there was commingling. So that is a good thing. Also, when cross-referencing your financial policies and procedures to the charter contract's minimum requirements for these financial policies and procedures, there was full alignment. I think there's 7 or 8 that we just absolutely have to have. And every single one of them was found, not necessarily verbatim, but it met the requirement that we require. That's a little too duplicative, but it met the requirement from the charter contract that we have with you guys. So, and then the last thing is just OTRS. I wanted to point that one out because EPIC is unique in that your teachers, your staff are members of OTRS, unlike the other virtual charter schools, and everything seems to be on the up and up there. The contributions are good. You guys are in compliance with OTRS, at least as far as I was able to determine. So now we get to the areas of improvement. And so before I jump into these areas of improvement, let me say that, just kind of reiterate, right? We didn't have anything that was out of compliance. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't have some kind of area where you might be able to improve upon. Besides, Epic, with your size, you're big enough. There's always something you could do to do things a little bit better. So keep that in mind as we talk about inventory and invoice supporting documentation. So the charter contract provision around inventory basically says itemized inventory of all real and personal property leased or purchased with public funds should be kept and be able to be provided to your sponsor, to your authorizer when we ask for it, or annually, I think is what the contract says. So in order to check for that, I came in and I said, hey, can I see a list of your inventory? And they said, absolutely, sure, here you go. In fact, here's our fixed asset listing, and here's our technology inventory, like with our computers, and here's who takes care of the inventory for this type of item, which is great. I mean, obviously, there are methods to track each and every one of those different types of personal property or inventory and technology. So I think that, I believe that Epic is doing a good job of tracking and monitoring and maintaining their inventory. However, all of those lists, some of the items might be on both lists, some of them might not, and there are reasons and rules for that, why, one piece of technology might be considered a fixed asset because it has a high enough value or has a long enough duration of life cycle. There's all those accounting things that we really don't want to get down into. But my thought is, if our charter contract requires an itemized inventory, then there might be an improvement that we could make there by making like a master list of all inventory, whether it's a fixed asset or a technology that doesn't belong on a fixed asset list, or some other kind of technology, cameras, maybe not the camera system itself, because we talked about that, and that's a conversation for another day. But we did have, we have some like cameras that you guys use for communications to take pictures during events and things like that. And so one of the things that I noted was that the cameras were able to be produced, or at least one of them was, and the other one was out on a shoot, which is fine. But they didn't have necessarily asset tags. And we just want to, as an auditor, we always want to avoid any possibility of that camera walking away and never coming back. I don't think anybody on your staff would do that, but they're a lot less likely to do it if it's on a list somewhere and it's got an asset tag and it has to be checked out, or their name is associated with it, that kind of thing. So, just again, it's a recommendation of a way that we could maybe improve, so that maybe next year when I say, hey, can you give me an inventory list? Say, oh yeah, here's that inventory list, and I say, I want to see that thing right there. And they're like, oh, that's our asset tag number 45676, and that's with this person. And then it's also on a fixed asset listing, or it's with Asset Panda, or it's with Telecom, that sort of thing. So I feel like I'm probably rambling out. I'm going to stop that and move on to the second recommendation, which is regarding supporting documentation. So when I was working with Janice on this review, she indicated that you guys have gone totally electronic. You guys are using Laserfish to store, house, file, keep on file all of your documentation. And I'm a supporter of that. I know I have my paper documents that I brought to the meeting and that I handed out to you, and I apologize for that, but I am a supporter of going electronic. And so, that being said, the only concern there is like, how can you have just as much assurance that you can go into your electronic file and open the drawer and find that document as you would if you could go into the physical file cabinet and open the drawer and find it. And what I found is I didn't look through a ton of documents. That's what your financial auditor's for when you have your financial audit. But I kind of played around. I did a test. I looked at invoices and I tried to trace them from PO to payment. And there were a few occasions where I couldn't get all the way from PO to payment or vice versa. And I will say that in every one of those instances, I was able to bring that to the attention of the finance team, and within a couple of days, really hours probably, we were able to figure out what happened, why it wasn't in there, maybe it shouldn't have been in there. And so again, that's why it's not an out of compliance thing, it's more like a best practice. And so it's very possible that since we talked, this could already be a thing that's happening. But my recommendation would be that periodically, internally, that system is tested or checked to make sure that if you go in there and you look for something, you either find it, or and the opposite side of the check is that there aren't things that are in there that shouldn't have been or are misclassified and things like that. And then, you know, if your team does a test like that and then they find things and they fix those things, you know, depending on the results of that test, maybe a deeper internal review is required. And then the next time I come in and I look in there, they're gonna have even more faith and confidence that everything is accurate because they have people that carve out time to do those deep dives. So that being said, I'm not trying to ask you guys to stop doing what you're doing and do something different, because the reviews, the recommendations that are on this list are very different than they would have been a few years ago. And in compliance versus out of compliance is very different than it would have been a few years ago. So I just want to say, in conclusion, that Epic Charter School is compliant with the financial terms of their charter contract, and that I appreciate you guys allowing me to speak today about this, and your staff for working with me so closely. So I'll give you a moment if you have questions about this particular review or the recommendations and then I'll pivot and we'll talk about the performance frameworks. Okay, so each year for the last few years, couple years at least, we have been doing performance frameworks in place of what we used to do, which was an annual review. And so the performance frameworks consist of 3 different sections: the academic, the financial, and the organizational performance frameworks. And so I have volunteered to present all 3, even though I'm not the academic and compliance officer. But it just made sense rather than us having to like rotate up here that I could just present these. So I believe you have these either in your electronic packet or maybe a physical packet as well. We don't need to put them up here because they're like 45 pages long and there's really only 3 pages in them that matter. So I'm going to start out with the academic performance framework. And that is the largest, by far the largest section of the performance framework. But before we delve down too deeply into the data, or the lack thereof, let me just explain that the academic performance framework did not receive a score this year, and there's a couple of different reasons why, and I want to talk to you about those, and I want to know if you guys have questions, and then we'll move on to the financial performance framework. So the academic performance framework was not scored this year for two key factors, 2 key reasons. The first factor is the recent history of state assessments in Oklahoma. And then there's some sub-bullet points under this, but essentially what we have designed in our performance framework is to say that the school, Epic Charter School, will receive points for each grade level, for each assessment type by subgroup if they either meet or exceeds the average of the state for those groups, or if they improve year over year by 5% or more. While we did have the data to be able to compare this school against the state, we did not have the data to be able to compare this school against this school last year, because last year the data was determined to be unreliable for multiple different reasons. And the year before that, it was determined to be unreliable. And the year before that was COVID. You know, so it's just, we're kind of in this, hopefully, a rubber band kind of effect, or a slingshot. And next year, between having this year as a baseline year, and I say this year, really last year. Having school year 2022-2023 as a baseline year, and then this school year, 2023-2024, we'll be able to give the school the full criteria, which is 1 year versus the other year, if they don't meet the state average for those different criteria that we were talking about. So, additionally, our academic compliance officer is working on making some changes to the academic performance framework to be more virtual charter school, I don't want to say friendly, because that makes it sound like it's going to be better for you, but more attuned to the style of a virtual charter school, looking at growth over time, rather than simply how well did a student do in one test on one day in 1 year. So I don't want to speak too much to that because that's not my department, but I do know that we're looking at ways to propose to our next board some changes to the academic performance framework so that hopefully we don't keep coming back to you year after year and saying we don't have an academic performance framework school. But that's why we don't for this year. So unless you have questions about that, I'll move on to finance, my favorite. Okay, so for the financial performance framework, this is going to be really short and sweet. You're going to love this. I know, it sounds like I've been here for what, like 20 years? There were no audits on the fiscal year 23 audit findings. So if you hadn't heard from me, if I ghosted you on the email and you're like, hey, look, I didn't have any audit findings, here this is my kudos. Good job, Epic, for not having any audit findings. Please do that every year from here on out. Additionally, I do some financial ratio analysis, and I'm going to really dive into the details of that. I'm just kidding.
We want to hear it.
We'll get together after the meeting. So none of Epic's financial ratios missed the mark, which is to be expected of a school your size and with your robust levels of revenue. So I want to give you the compliment, Janice, but also the more money you have, the easier it is to manage. Easier. but yeah, it is sometimes less complex than if you have 5 students in a school and you're trying to, pay for all of your staff and things like that. So good job managing your money well. And before I get to the last thing on this one, I will just say that you guys are big, and I know sometimes you still have this, we're small, right? Because we do one-on-one with our teachers and our students and our class sizes and things like that. You're an organization of, I heard something around nearly 2,000 employees and thousands of students. The largest virtual charter school by far, the largest charter school, I'm pretty sure, and definitely one of the largest schools in the state. So let's keep that in mind and think of ourselves as, I didn't look this up and I should have before the fact, but where are you guys in comparison to Paycom as far as actual size? You know what I mean? So when you're thinking about moving forward, think about it from the perspective of we are big and what kind of problems do really big organizations have, and let's watch out for those, not just kind of assume that everybody is doing right. I like to assume, trust but verify. I'm an auditor, right? I trust, but then I'm going to ask you for that documentation to back it up. So you guys are a great board, you're an independent board, and I would just encourage each and every one of you board members to continue operating under that with your own opinions and your own ideas, and don't be afraid to speak up if something just smells wrong. And maybe they can, the documentation then says, oh, no, this smells right after all. But if something smells weird or funky or doesn't make sense, ask those questions. Financially, the school scored 100% on their financial performance framework for school year 2022-2023. That was it, yeah, for finance. Organizationally, and then I will be done and we'll turn it over to you guys to finish this out. It's not a secret that Epic has ongoing and recurring litigation. However, when we were doing the performance framework review, we determined that there weren't any conclusions or rulings that confirm the school has violated any laws or regulations. So our organizational performance framework is worded such that you are required to abide by all federal and state laws and regulations, and we confirm no violations of them. The school, as kind of alluded to earlier, was accredited with probation for this school year under review, 2022-2023. My understanding is that the school was accredited with no deficiencies for the current year, indicating that all of those deficiencies have been resolved since then. And overall, organizationally, EPIC scored 92.4%, receiving 30.5 out of the 33 total possible points. And so from the statewide virtual charter school board's perspective, EPIC Charter School is organizationally sound. And that concludes my presentations unless you have questions.
I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the work you've done to try to create metrics or have metrics that are more meaningful to us and give us more information relevant to our large charter virtual asynchronous organization. I think that one marker that I really liked hearing about was that 5% improvement marker. That's the kind of marker I'm looking for, so I really like it that I think it trickles down, essentially into thinking of even our students. So I appreciate the improvement marker. That was it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What was that finance score this year?
There was 2 zeros in it. 100%. Just to speak on that for like 1/2 of a second, I remember a couple of years ago when Janice said, "What's it going to take us to get to 100%?" And I said, I mean, time for one, because we have things that are measured over time. You got it. 100%.
It did a lot of work for Schuyler too, for us. It's a lot of work.
Good job, and I appreciate it. Is there any discussion on it? We have an action item. All right, we're on to 2E. Discussion advancing EPIC governance and performance framework by.
Well, good afternoon. I got to admit, afternoon and board meetings just, I've been 40 years in this business, and it's weird, but it's cool. It's cool, I like it. So we got several things to look over, and what I'd like to do is go to the next slide. This is just for your reminder of what you put into board policy as to what you want. So the staff is meeting your expectations, and of course with the board policy, if there's things that you want to change, you obviously can. But I just wanted as a reminder what expectations. In April, you were looking for financials, formative student engagement, and state testing data. So that's what we'll present to you. Next slide. Here's the good slide of the night. Now, admittedly, this has been a whale of a week. I mean, 5 years, started the foundation, got 100%. I mean, I've never heard 100% out of accounting anywhere. So, way to go, Denise.
Overachievers.
Overachievers. But this one is really cool if you're an academic teacher and care about the student achievement. I want you to look at the little gray bar. It's a little tiny thing, but look how much higher it is than the previous 2 years, and look how close it is to the actual goal that you set to move on. And this is a tribute to a lot of really hard work. It's just a little tiny thing on the screen, but it's a big, huge behemoth operation that Justin and his team work on every day to make things happen. So this one is really good news in English language arts. Next slide. On the other side, math is not keeping up with its cousin in the reading, but Justin and I were talking about that, and they are actually already in the process of thinking through why that is. One of the things that you have to realize is math, as my professors used to teach, math is harder than reading. Math is hard, and it requires a lot of building blocks. And so we're seeing a little bit of slippage, still within tolerances and in really good shape, but falling behind previous years, which has only occurred 2 times in the time that we've been doing this, and that's these 2 right here, but they're working on it. What I like about the organization is they don't complain about or try to hide or change these numbers. They try to do something about them, and that's what you're seeing happen. Next slide, engagement. Engagement looks kind of weird. The blank spaces are not missing data. That's when you're on vacations and breaks. We're running right at about 71%. And this is time for me to kind of remind you, this is a leading indicator. This isn't judgment day. Judgment day is when the student passes a test, or more importantly, when they face life circumstances that they need these skills of reading and math. And so this measure is the one that they're working on all the time to try to get up. 70% is a pretty solid number, but we're going to continue to work on improving that. Next slide. This one's interesting. We get these out of Craig Cummins, I think. By the way, Mike Flory's team, Kevin Johnson, Michelle Yoder, Craig Cummins, a whole bunch of folks make all this possible, and sometimes I forget to thank them for this. Basically, what I want you to notice is enrollment. You saw the big spike in COVID years, but you're very stable and landing beautifully, about the same as it was last year. What I'm intrigued with is this re-enrollment number is staying in the plus 70% or better, which is the ultimate NPS score. I like you so well, I come back and I re-enroll. We also have truancy moved. We had it back in 11, 7, 8, 8, 5.4, 5.6 right now, and withdrawals are continuing to come down, which is all signs of quality and programming that's meeting the needs of students. So I hope that is interesting to you. Next slide. On the testing front, the testing front's huge, and you're just going to see it here in just a few slides. Here is what gets tested in the state of Oklahoma and every other state in the union. And so right now they're gearing up. We'll see some dates here in a minute, but doing the testing regimens, math, English, science, ACT science, and U.S. history for grade 11. You'll notice grades K through 2, 9th and 10th, 12th don't get tested, so you'll see differences in the test numbers from the actual enrollment because quite a pretty big swath of students are outside this testing regimen. Next slide. Here's the dates. You see 18th to May 15th online testing. That's where most of the focus is. So starting next week, and you'll see people working to get kids registered and get people assigned. One of the great challenges you'll find is with this many students is to get them to the test sites. That's probably a bigger challenge than teaching Algebra 1 on any given day. So these are the dates that your the staff in this organization and the staff in every school district in the state are affected by these dates. Next slide. Here is a map of Oklahoma with all the test sites that are set up by EPIC. So if you can only imagine all the work that goes into the technology and the computerization and the staffing and the assignments and the facilities and everything else that goes into it. Next slide shows you, this is a heat map of students that are enrolled in EPIC. I don't know whether you've seen that before. I found it fascinating. Obviously, there's huge populations in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but you also see it across the entire state, enrollments in all places. If you go back and look at the previous slide, you'll see that these are all the test sites to match up with those students so they don't have to travel far to make this stuff happen. Next slide. Here's a count. This is how many students will be assessed this year, or at least as we sit today. There will probably be some adjustments before those dates get done, but pretty good idea. Tens of thousands of students being moved from one place to another, given assignments, given tests, and make all that stuff work beautifully. This is happening again in every school in the state across the board. So test information. Any questions on the test information? That's a little different than most of the time, more informative than anything, I hope. Next slide. Now I want to add two things. Here's the fascinating part about EPIC is its innovation. So you would think, well, with all this stuff that's going along really well, wouldn't we just keep the status quo? And the answer is no. There's one that in the data analytics group that figured out that star projections were not as accurate as they needed to be on actual test results. So this is a year ago, not this year, but a year ago. So they went about the process of creating EPIC performance projection calculations, and they were able to predict this is star, this is the best we had at the time, making things work. Now we have an assessment predictor in these number ranges that are much closer to the actual performance. Why is this important? Because if I can know this in the middle of the year, it's a lot better than knowing about it after the test is done and there's no way to fix anything. Interested?
Very.
That's kind of behind the scenes, deep in the bowels of
Who
the
developed
operation.
that?
But what's that?
Who developed this?
Kevin Johnson? Michael?
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think the future should ever be a surprise.
So the team, the whole team is fascinating. I meet with them once a week just about, and they're fascinating in how they're trying to figure out how to make better use of the data, how to make better data, but also how to deploy it so that teachers and staff and people that are affected know it. So it's fascinating. Next slide is another innovation, propensity match analysis. Now, if you're starting to feel like you're in stats class again, well, you are. It's funny. Propensity match analysis is basically I take a whole series of variables about a series of students, about a group of students, and I match up students that are as close as possible to being the same in variables like poverty, IEP status, prior performance, grade level, circumstances of the courts, anything that we have data on. And they put it into this propensity match analysis so that I don't have to have an experimental control group over here and a treatment group over here. I can now, on the fly, take a look at surprisingly small innovations, and I can separate the noise. Like, well, did that class have all students with disabilities that could cause real problems in trying to achieve success versus, you know, all the kids that are really top-notch and don't have any challenges? I can now sort all that out and clear out all that noise in the data set, and I can see what happens in real detail, whether the reform or the initiative is really good. Now, you've seen all of the data on the performance. We've shown it to you in the past. There's a whole series of innovations that are going on in the organization. We just use this to show what this looks like. 0 is the score that you would have had on math. I think it's mathematics at 5th, 6th, and 7th grade if you were in 1-to-1, which is the bulk of the students in the school. The vast majority are in 1-to-1. We compare that to Math Plus, and so any variation, these little bars are the variation from the 1-to-1. So in this case, we were able to find in Unified Scale Score, that's an EPP, you find that you had this much variation in the treatment so that you can have confidence with the propensity match analysis that you weren't comparing two different groups of kids. You have similar kids. The SGP score, we appear to have some impact, and historically without the propensity match we wouldn't have been able to identify this because the noise would have covered it up. You'll notice that there's no advantage, there's none to the negative. Math Plus doesn't have a negative impact, which sometimes we find innovations do. So again, not a not a big issue for you necessarily, but I think 2 examples of some really sophisticated statistical analysis that will then pay benefits as the organization moves on. And with that, we are done. Questions, comments? Have fun, folks.
Thank you very much. That's good stuff. Okay, we are on to leadership and administration and back to Bart.
Before I get started, I'm going to shout out, I'll talk a little bit about the logistical challenges of testing 15,000 kiddos, or whatever the number is that we're going to test this year. And there is a goal, an organizational goal, to make sure that we test more than 95% of our students every single year. And every single year we achieve that goal. And so there's someone who's with us today that is spearheading all things state testing at Epic, and I just wanted to recognize her. This is Mary Connor. I've been with the organization for over a decade and does a fantastic job. She has a wonderful team, and we saw all the state map and all the different sites and locations, and this has been probably the most seamless year we've ever had, so I just wanted to give her a shout out. Let's take a look, if you don't mind, Jeremy, put that presentation up there. Let's do a superintendent's update for April 11th, 2024. What's going on? So we're going to start with our 5 aspirations, as we do. Those are our North Star. Next slide. Enrollment dashboard, that's a little bit low, 28,972. It's actually, last time I checked, I think we were like around 29,200, 300-ish, somewhere in there. And I think that's probably where we're going to stay for the remainder of the year. But just hovering on that 30,000 kid mark. What's interesting is, we actually have algorithms that we monitor that are projecting for 24-25 enrollment. And right now, the projections are showing that we're going to be significantly above 30,000 students just based on new applications and re-enrollment applications, and then they put it into a formula, but we're growing. So just wanted to share that with the group. Excited about that. Here's our standards mastery for ELA formative completion, and we've got 2 months here, both February and March, because we didn't meet last month, and so I just want to give a shout out to Sheila Sanders, Trishelle Raymond, Emily Shackelford, Jenna Lee Hitchcock, April Golden, and for ELA formative mastery, Sheila Sanders, Trishelle Raymond, and Lori Gray. And then on the flip side, the math, and I appreciate Bob, you showing the math formative completion, because it's something we own month after month, whether it's high, whether it's low, whether it's meeting our goal or not. So for math formative completion, Sheila Sanders, Camille Franzio, Emily Shackelford, April Golden, and Amanda Lashley. And then finally for math formative mastery, Jeff Upton, Trishelle Raymond, April Golden, and Amanda Coburn. So appreciate those principals. I know some of them are watching right now. I appreciate your efforts to make sure that we're not only teaching, but that we're also measuring. Next slide. SBCSB charter renewal. So grateful to the SBCSB, everybody on their staff, the guidance that they have provided over the last couple of years to help us to come into compliance, to be able to get the kind of report that Skylar just gave is a blessing to the organization, it's a blessing to our staff, and most importantly, it's a blessing to the students. So hats off to the Statewide Virtual Charter School Board, and this will take us, just so you all know, I believe this will take us through June of 2029. Is that right? Yes. June of 2029. So we're going to be here for a while. Next slide. Preparation and delivery of tests. Take a look at the tests and the briefcases and all of the pallets and all that go into testing. So 60 sites across the state, 10,000 miles driven just to prepare for that. 3,700 Chromebooks prepped and paired with MiFi devices. And so we want to give a shout out to system support, state assessments, customer experience, and all the folks at Epic that have been a part of putting this together. And I actually had an opportunity to walk through and see some of our Epic kiddos taking the ACT today, and very seamless. And the teachers I spoke with said it's really been a good couple of weeks of testing. So I'm excited. Now the little ones though, they start next week. And so that could be a little bit more of a challenge because sometimes they don't like being here. They don't like taking tests either. And so we'll do our best to accommodate them and make sure that the environment is safe and conducive for testing. Next slide. Freshman Academy English, this is kind of cool. So the English department created a Holocaust literature and research essay unit. So the research paper extended their knowledge of first-hand accounts of the Holocaust, helping them to explore other prominent Jewish individual experiences so that they had more than Elie Wiesel's account. So the students read the memoir at night and worked on the research paper, highlighting influential Jewish figures from the Holocaust. And the students then visited the Zara Museum in Tulsa. So this field trip allowed students to gain more information and historical context of World War II, and they were able to rely on the schema from what they covered in the class to better appreciate and enjoy the experience. Students were also able to participate in creating a timeline for Elie Wiesel's life, and so this is really sort of turning learning into life and really taking it to a deeper level of knowledge, or what we call depth of knowledge as educators for these kiddos, bringing it to life. Next slide. Stonegate, let's give an update on the Learning Center. So the Learning Center, Stonegate recently hosted a teacher pancake breakfast as well as a visit from Fancy Dancer. And we're going to get a report here from Shauna. We'll be up in just a little bit. She's going to talk about some of the things that her department has been up to, specifically with Native American programs. And I'll tell you what, out of all the years I've been a decade, and I've been here for more than a decade, I honestly believe this is the most content we've ever offered our Native American students at Epic. And it is, I mean, you wouldn't believe all of the different learning opportunities for the 6,000 to 7,000 Native American students that they call Epic home. And so very proud of that. And Fancy Dancer is just one example of bringing that to life. Next slide, family engagement. Special education. Since February, our Special Olympics team has been practicing for the upcoming meets in OKC as well as Tulsa. These athletes have worked so hard and bring a lot of joy. So you can see our family engagement, the pictures here, and that's something that we participate in on an annual basis and are honored to do so. Oh yeah, one other thing before you flip there, because this is we did achieve the prestigious Culture City certification for our commitment, Epic's commitment to creating sensory inclusive spaces for our kiddos. So very proud of that. Next slide. So Tulsa and Northeast Oklahoma students were able to attend a field trip at the Rocky Meadow Farms in Owasso. Look at some of these pictures of the animals that they had an opportunity to do some hands-on kinesthetic learning. And so really cool work that the Family Engagement Department is doing across the state of Oklahoma. Every single one of these kiddos have opportunities like this one. So proud of them. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you.
Yes.
I can't even imagine all the work that's gone into just what I've been able to see that's gone on across the state with family engagement. And I am thrilled that, I mean, the work is outstanding and it shows. Okay, we are on to Janice.
Good afternoon, board members. We have 2 months financial statements in your packet because we did not have a meeting last month, but what I'm presenting is the end of that 2-month period on the screen because to present both seems a little bit of time that we don't have today. So at the end of February, the cash balance at the bank was $67.25 million, with $7.7 million in outstanding checks, leaving us a fund balance of almost $6 million at the end of February, which is very healthy. Again, our goal, our budget is $45 million at the end of the year. 71% on revenue, so above what our target is, and 62% on expenses, which is below what our target is. So those are both green lights from my chair. And everything is as expected with our new model for revenue and the way we're filing our claims. So you can see that blue is the current year and it's pretty steady outside of December when we had quite a few claims for those months there. And then the adjustment in January for prior 2 years where there was no state funding, that's quite low, so it looks very strange. But we're going to start seeing that even out as we have stabilized our enrollment to not be as volatile as it was in prior years, but still growing. And then expenditures, pretty even. The blue looks pretty stable across every month, which is really nice for cash flow. We will not have that big spike in December again or in September because those are the old quarterly teacher bonuses that we don't pay anymore. They're all in June. That is all I have to report. There's a lot more in the packet. So there's money in the bank. We're below our budget. All things are good. 100% from Skylar.
That's it.
I'm trying along, y'all, that's what I'm saying. That said, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about the packet or anything finance.
I'd just like to say that during the audit meetings, that is the level of questions that I ask her. Do we have money? Do we owe more than we have?
That's a reasonable question.
It is, that's all I know.
Thank you
That's
so
all I
much.
need to know. So I would move to approve the, the financial statements for February and June.
Correct.
I'll make that motion.
Second. I think Trevor moved.
All right, here we go. Ms. Berry.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Ms. Plum.
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds.
Yes.
And Ms. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Bella.
Yes.
Okay, Shauna, I'm so excited. Plus y'all have that beautiful coat.
I think my epic branded sweater, yes. Hello, everyone. As she said, I'm Shauna Sawkill. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Operations. And I'm the mom of an EPIC graduate and an EPIC 8th grader. The 8th grader is challenging, so say a little prayer for me. I've been with EPIC since 2016, and I've been overseeing operations since 2022. So I am very excited today to be able to highlight this group of wonderful people that I have the privilege of leading every day. And I'm going to go over a few of our other departments first, and then I will hand it over for the reports that Bart was mentioning earlier. I often compare our department, our division, to the game Operation. How many of you ever played that growing up? Okay. And, in the game, you take the role of the surgeon, and you're, tasked with removing the various parts in the patient's body without touching the edge. And if you touch the edge, what happens? Yes, very true. So how does this possibly compare? Well, I like to say in the game, it requires specialized skills. And in each of these areas that we will talk about today, there's very specialized skills. When you first put these departments all under one umbrella, it's what do they really have in common? How are they going to work together? But they do. They use their specialized skills together to support the other areas of the school. We recently were in a meeting, and Linville Fields said if you can't directly support a student through your chosen career field, support those who support the students. And that's what a lot of the operations team does every day. And then attention to detail. In the game, you touch the side, you're not paying attention, you hit the buzzer, you lose your turn. On the operations team, if we overlook small details, mistakes that we make, there's consequences. And sometimes they can be as jarring as that buzzer in the whole organization. So we try to keep that attention to detail. Working under pressure, just like in the game, all of EPIC, I think we work under pressure. But in the operations team, there's times you think, okay, this is the path that we're walking on, this is what we're doing, and then boom, it changes, we change directions, and we just try to stay focused and calm and keep on trucking. And then problem solving. Obviously, as you're playing that game and you're trying to figure out, okay, if I turn this way just a little, or I turn this way and just make this little adjustment, and we do the same thing. We're tackling the different challenges that come, whether it be enrollment growing, whether it be something breaking down in a building, whether it be a last minute event that needs to take place, we just jump in and we take care of that. Is there perfection in our game? No. Do we sometimes have buzzers that go off? Yes. But I would say that this group of people never backs down from a challenge, and I've never seen a group of more dedicated servant leaders who just get there behind the scenes, not asking for glory, and just get stuff done. So I'm very proud to talk about them today. That was my EPIC leadership team. How do I go backwards? There we go. Look at me working the clicker. This is our EPIC leadership team, and we have Ashley Worley, who is our managing director of student engagement programs, right there. You can stand up and everybody, okay? We have Serena Watson, our Director of Special Events. Holly Perez is not with us today, but she's our Director of Customer Experience. We have Hunter Seelock, who is our Managing Director of Facilities Operations. Danny Partain, who keeps me in line, Executive Assistant. And then Rob Chrissinger, our Executive Director of Communications. And anyone else in here who is a member of the Operations Division, can you stand today so we can recognize you if you're in the Operations Division? Okay, so first I want to give a shout out to our communications team. Our communications team has undergone a lot of change and a lot of growth, and we have seen so much success, especially as of late, that I can't help but just beam every time that this department comes up. Our social media engagement is up, and that's not just trolls. That's positive. That's people that are commenting and interacting and sending us content, and it's really exciting to see. Our website traffic is up. Our website is better than it's ever been, and we're getting more unique visitors every day, and it's super exciting to see. Submissions by our staff and students for our videos and for our content is up. They want to be featured. They want to tell us what's going on, and we're able to go out and see them all across the state. And the quality of our output is outstanding. I would put the videos and the things that we do up against any team anywhere. It is absolutely incredible. And then accomplishments. When I first was put over communications, and Bart can verify this, I said, do I have to talk to the media? Do I have to go in front of the media? He's like, no, you do not. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And used to, when you heard the word media at Epic, it was an immediate stiff back, bristle, look around, okay, what now? But not anymore. Now, with Rob's expertise and his team's talent, we have many positive media mentions on TV, print, and online. And some of these are ones that we pitch stories to them, but a lot of them, they're reaching out to us and saying, we're hearing that Epic's doing this, we want to feature this story. Even today, they did a general story about graduation. Epic's feature about our prom on the Oklahoma City News, and then Channel 2 is going to do another story including us about our efforts with AI. So statewide, we're getting very positive mentions in the media. Our customer experience department. This used to be customer service. They recently were trained at the world-renowned Disney Institute. It was incredible. I was able to go with them, and it was life-changing in a lot of ways. And watching people just have such a passion for customer service. And you might say, well, you're a school customer. Yes, every person that comes in contact with Epic is our customer. And we have internal customers that we're serving as well with our staff and our families that are enrolled, but then external customers with the public that comes in contact with Epic. And that's very important to us. These are our frontline people. They're the first people to come in. If somebody's happy, they're the first person they talk to. If somebody's mad, that's the first person they talk to. So they're in person at our microsites and our admin offices. It's been very important for us to have real live people sitting there that are answering the door, that can help them and talk to them all across the state. They're also doing Tier 1 support for most departments. In the past, the goal prior was transfer them within 1 minute to somebody else to take care of them. That is no longer the goal. A live person answers the phone, and 70% of the time, 70 to 80%, depending on the month, the customer experience team member can resolve that problem without ever transferring them to another person. And when they do transfer them, they make notes and they follow up and make sure the person was assisted. They're the go-to information of all kinds. If I don't know something, I ask our customer experience people because they know what's going on. And then they also assist at all of our events. This is some of their call data and their chat data. We just switched systems, so right now we're focusing on February. Pretty soon, once it's all uploaded, we'll have more up to date. But they handled 3,596 phone calls with a miss rate of only 3.9%, meaning a real person didn't answer first on 3.9% of the calls, and only a transfer rate of 30%. And then on the chat, if you've ever done our chat, it's an amazing way to get an answer. And I did a test at Disney, and they are known for their customer service, but I waited on chat for 16 minutes for someone to answer me. Ours is an average of 2.4 right now, but our goal is under a minute. And we're going to be able to get to that goal. We've just grown the team to include an only online group that just answers phone and chat. So that the people that are in person aren't saying, hold on just a minute, I'm trying to answer this. They're looking you in the eyes, they're helping you, and then the people online are able to do the phone and the chat. So it's really going to help our metrics even more, which helping our metrics means helping our people. Okay, our events team. If you ate food today, you can thank the events team. If you've ever gone to an event and thought, wow, this is really well done, you can thank the events team. They have grown their team because we've grown in our events. They used to do primarily events with students, and family engagement has taken a lot of that on, so they've really upped their game on the internal events. They'll help with the PLCs for the teachers, they help with the board meetings, they do prom, graduation, and things like that. So they're very excited about more collaboration with other teams. They don't come in and take over an event, but they help take that burden off the person who's running the event. Because if you've ever done an event and then you're also trying to get up and do it while doing all the logistics, it's insane. So they take care of all those logistics so that other people can concentrate on the actual meat of the event. And we get rave reviews on the events that they coordinate, constant compliments. And I have never seen people more detail-oriented that think of things to bring that you think, oh no, this person's shoe broke. Oh, we have a whole bag of brand new flip-flops that we brought. Or, oh, dental floss, thread, there's a million things that they just have in this kit. And the minute you say it, they're there with it in their hand, which is amazing. 2 upcoming events, which are our biggest events of the year. We have 2 proms, and we have 6 graduations. Our first prom is this Saturday in Norman, and it's a sight to behold. We're very excited. We have a chaperone to student ratio of about 5 to 1. So we can be there to assist and check all the nooks and crannies at the prom. And you all were teenagers, you know. So we're going to be there and encourage them. It's so neat to watch as they come in and they might not know anybody and they're kind of hesitant. And 30 minutes later, you're checking on them and they've made 10 new friends and they're walking around and dancing and having a great time. So we'll have the one in Norman at the Oklahoma History Museum. Not Oklahoma History Museum. Sam Noble Museum. And then the next week it will be at the aquarium in Jinx. And then our graduations are like nothing I've ever seen. While you're seeing news stories about parents being upset because their kids can't wear regalia or can't have a personalized graduation experience, there's none of that at Epic. They can decorate their caps. We've had kids, they love the outfit they're wearing, so their gown is undone when they walk across, so they can show their fancy outfit. We've had ones that with sensory issues didn't wear a gown, and it didn't matter. We don't make it about us, we make it about them. We literally roll out a red carpet, we literally have pom-poms and things to cheer them when they walk out. And if you haven't been to an Epic graduation, please, 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 please make your way to one of the 6, because you will not be sorry that you attended. Facilities department. We consolidated our facilities teams about a year ago. And it seems like a lot longer than that, but we brought them all together, and now we have 2 branches within that umbrella, our facilities operations and our construction management and development. And then our facilities acquisition specialists, I have to give them a special shout out because they've been covering the state to find sites for our teachers and students. And you might say, well, we're a virtual school. Why do you need sites? What are you doing with all of those sites? We have our Common Academy that meets in person. We have our one-on-one teachers that can schedule rooms to meet in person. We have co-ops. We have our clubs that use our facilities. And our facilities are very highly used and very highly sought after. When the reservations open at the beginning of the year, Justin and I like to refer to it as the Hunger Games, because everybody's wanting to be sure they get a spot. We would love to eventually not have to have the Hunger Games and have spots all over the state, all 77 counties, for our staff and our students to use. This just kind of shows us some quick data, but this shows a comparison of the number of tickets last year to this year that they are taking care of, and the number of tickets closed within 24 hours. And that means somebody puts in a ticket, it could be something minor, something major, and that they take care of all across the state at our facilities. So we're very proud of that increase in productivity that we've seen. And then this next one is the one I'm really excited to share. You've seen every month on the agenda the sites that we're asking for you to approve. And we have made so much progress this year. And sometimes it's easy to, you see a list this month, you see a list last month, but to really put it in perspective, the communications team helped make this vision a reality and put together this graphic. So the sites that are going to show up first, those are the sites we had. Then they're disappearing. These are the sites we've added this school year. And this is Epic's footprint currently. And I believe if you put that up against that heat map earlier, I was noticing that when it was up there, it got me a little excited, that it matches that. And our goal, of course, is to have them all over, but we've done a very systematic approach based on enrollment by county. At the end of this meeting today, if our sites are approved, we will have 34 microsites across the state of Oklahoma. And that doesn't even take into account, we have 50 partner sites, which you say, what's the difference? The partner sites are a building we don't fully control. It could be a community center that we rent a room. It could be a church that we use some of their classrooms. It can be a multitude of different places, even some of the libraries where we pay to use space. Those are what we call partner sites. So all in all, that would be 84 places that EPIC is providing around the state for students and teachers to meet. And that's just going to continue growing. But this progress to me is nothing short of outstanding, and we couldn't do it without the board's support and without Barb's vision. So we appreciate everything you're doing to help us make this happen. So now I'm going to turn it to Ashley Worley. I mentioned earlier, she's the Managing Director of Student Engagement Programs, and she's going to give an update regarding our Title VI program, which is our Indian Education Program, as well as updates regarding our Native Language Initiative. I do want to say, Title VI here at EPIC started with a conversation between Bart and I, and a decision not to use a consultant, that we could do it in-house. And I talked Ashley into joining my team, and it was a rocky start. We had a lot of roadblocks from outside entities that were not interested in us participating. We had help from Leland, some of his connections. Alicia is here. She has helped us a ton and still helps us with our budget and managing it. And so I couldn't be more proud of this team and of everything they've done. So I'm excited for her to give you the updates today.
Thank you so much, Shauna. And I'm going to have Leslie Montemere come up. She is my Native American Programs Director, and I can't take the credit. It all goes to Leslie. Her and her team do a phenomenal job. They love our students so much. They do so much for our kids, and I'm not going to take the credit. So Leslie, there you go.
Thank you. Hingshay Songo, Leslie Montemere, Jabojib Fido. So hello, how are you? My name is Leslie Montemere. I'm in Muskogee, and I have the honor and privilege of being a part of our Native American programs. This is our second year for our Title VI program. And like with everything at Epic, we have high aspirations and we have a lot of demands that we put on ourselves and that our administrators put on us. But most importantly, I cannot do this by myself. This team is the one who puts our plans and our brainstorming into motion every day. When they meet a challenge or an obstacle, that they don't let that stop them. They think outside the box. They get with their parents, our families, and our tribal communities, and they find a way to reach our students and still provide opportunities. So we do have 4 region specialists. We also have our own heat map. Thank you, Flory, for providing that. And we look at where our Native students are located throughout the state, and that's how we divide up our regions. So we have 4 region specialists. So not only are they communicating with the families in that area, but they are communicating with the tribes that are headquartered in those locations. Because, like other entities, when you have leadership changes, the people within the departments under that leadership, sometimes their vision changes. So in order to stay up to date, and so that challenges based on our families, our specialists go out and contact the tribes, the education departments regularly to stay up to date on the programs and services that they're offering their citizens. And in turn, they communicate with each other because those tribal citizens are all over the state. So we push that information out to our families, and we try to keep them up to date as much as possible. We do have a college and career specialist, our lead, and we also are currently interviewing for an Eastern position. But they work hand in hand with Epic CCR department, and then we focus on the tribal resources because of all the different resources that are available. Again, that's a daunting task as a parent of a high school student to try and figure that out for yourselves. So they go out and they communicate with the tribes, they connect with the students, and then they get them started on their post-high school plans. And then we were able to add 2 metro specialists. So just like the heat map that Epic has, we do have a high concentration of Native students in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So Jamie and Stephanie came on this last year from prestigious districts in themselves with a wealth of knowledge, and they are here at 50 Penn and at Tulsa Logan Building, where we house our Indigenous library books, our engagement packs, and they meet with students face-to-face and virtually. So again, all of these amazing things are because of them. So currently we have 4,921 students. That is what we turn in for our Part 1 Title VI application. And as mentioned before, we have close to 7,000 students within Epic who identify as Native. We never fail to mention that because we have a lot of students who have descendancy and they may not have proof of it. So we don't want to ever not acknowledge them, and we always try to provide opportunities for them to learn cultural things as well. But here it shows our growth from FY22 through 24. We are growing, and a lot of that is because of the team. They have to meet with families and parents and explain the process of getting them on our Title VI roster. Some families are hesitant to join that program because they don't know what it means. I don't want to give you my documents until I know how it's going to benefit my family. So sometimes that takes several conversations, but they do a great job of having that in-depth conversation with each of them. So, what was it? A couple months ago, we were contacted by Tulsa World. They wanted to do an article about Title VI charter schools, and because we are a big part of that, they reached out to us, and Alicia provided us this data about where we fall within the national statistics and state. So if you look at this top, we are 7th in the nation based on our student count for Native American students. And again, this is our 2nd year of our program. So again, it's overwhelming, but we take it on with a smile with each challenge that we face. And then within our state, we are number 1 for Indian student count. So we have 4,498. This was from last year's information. And then we also have the most funds allocated per Native student. Any questions on those 2 slides?
This is very, very impressive, your work.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, go back. So these are our regional counts that we were talking about. And it's important for us to give each of them time and space because they communicate regularly with their families. What a student needs a broken bow is different from what a student needs in Myanmar. So they reach out to the families, they have constant communication, and they bring that back to the table to make sure what we're providing to them is the best support. We do have student organizations at every grade level, and these are some of the opportunities that we can open up to all students and not just those who have a Title VI documentation. We have a Warrior Book Club that she reads aloud an Indigenous book each week, and they have some interesting conversations in there with the pre-K through 2nd graders. This is a great way to get connected with our kids at an early age. And then we can connect them with our team, and they have each of them at every grade level so that we can stay in contact with them, make sure that they're performing as they should be. And if we see a dip in communication or engagement, then we can kind of alert the teacher and we can team up and collaborate with that student's performance. In 3rd and 4th grade, they kind of switched to offering tribal knowledge of all of the organizations within Oklahoma. So at this time, we know that a lot of students are just starting their cultural identity journey, and so they might just know what tribe they are or just know that they're Native. So our 3rd and 4th grade club sponsors talk about all the tribes of Oklahoma, where they started, their regalia, the structures of that tribe, just so that they begin building that cultural knowledge. In our junior high and high school organizations, they kind of shift to a more student-centered organization. And one of the great things that came from our high school students 2 years ago is they said they wanted something to help them with testing anxiety. Spring is a hectic time for educators, it's also hectic for our students. And so they brought that to our attention, and we sought out someone who was Native and had a background in counseling, and he started a whole wellness group, which Ashley can talk more about that. That's something that's open to all of our students, and we're very proud of that. We've added Indigenous endeavors, so it's highlighting STEAM projects with a cultural component. And so Stephanie and Jay have taken that on, and they have field trips and they have virtual meetups that follow up, and it's been a great time seeing them prosper that. So these are just some of our activities in the state, and you see several of them listed here. This is our slow time of year because everybody's testing. So we do have virtual opportunities. We saw a big decrease in our student engagement in person. So our specialists went to the drawing table, they rethought about their cultural activities, and they said, how can we present this virtually? So they scoured the internet for storytelling and for cultural lessons. They practiced with each other making shawls and moccasins over Zoom, and that is very difficult. But they've done it successfully with our students, and our students have been very patient in that process, and so we've been very proud of that. But two of the things I would like to highlight is May 23rd and 24th. We have Greg Victors, who is a world champion fancy dancer, and this is an event that is open to all EPIC students. So again, we'd like to bring our culture knowledge to all. Again, we have our Indigenous library. We have books that's available from picture books all the way up to chapter books, and those are available for our families to check out. And they do offer tutoring. And we like to say this tutoring isn't in lieu of a teacher, it's just another layer of support, but also helping our families navigate the platforms that EPIC already offers, or adding to it the tribal resources that are available to them. And these are just some of our events that our students have participated at. So they learn to make necklaces, they do keychains, they've made corn husk dolls, and it's just a good time seeing all of them in person. And Mudo for your time, thank you.
All right, so next is really exciting. This is a new program based off of Bart's vision. He had a vision to do Native language revitalization and throwing in some technology, some AI, and we're just excited that we get to do this. So we already had a teacher at EPIC that taught and can speak Muskogee Creek, and so we had conversations with him, and I was able to bring him on this year, and so I have Kevin Roberts Fields, who is my Director of Native Languages, and he's going to talk about the Native Language Program.
Wow, this is an impressive room. I think I almost missed it because I thought it was a virtual board meeting. And I know at least gave Ashley a heart attack, and Shauna probably one too.
Yes.
It is my privilege. It really is my distinct privilege to serve as the Director of Native Languages for EPIC Charter School. And before we start, I just have to acknowledge Bart, Shauna, Ashley, everyone for your vision to serve every single student within EPIC and including our Native students, and to give them opportunities that they don't have anywhere else. So I applaud you for that. So again, welcome to this episode of Native Languages at EPIC. I'll be your host today. So we'll start with our vision. So our vision for Native Languages is to provide Native language instruction to students regardless of geography, and to collaborate with tribal nations in language revitalization efforts. So we are partners with our tribal nations to do our part in coming alongside them, not taking the lead, walking along with them in their efforts to preserve and revitalize their language. By the numbers, Leslie did a great job of going over our enrollment numbers, so I won't do that. I will add, though, that we have 458 students listed as Hawaiian or Hawaiian Native or Pacific Islander. The reason that is important is because under the Office of Indian Education, Alaska Natives and Native Hawaiians are included with Native Americans. So when we look at our students by numbers in regards to languages, so to keep in mind that there are some tribes, multiple tribes that speak the same language within Oklahoma. So when we look at our numbers just by language, we have 1,750 students within EPIC who come from Cherokee-speaking tribe, 818 Choctaw, 538 from Muskogee, 282 Chickasaw, 120 Potawatomi, and then 50 each of Cheyenne and Arapaho, Osage, and Comanche. So we have internal and external goals with our Native Languages program. This goal to develop a comprehensive Native language program to facilitate language acquisition and proficiency for all EPIC Native language models. Yes, Native languages are a subject, you're going to receive a grade, but our metrics are greater than that. They're greater than a number on a test. They're greater than checking the box that you've got a world language credit. We really want our students to achieve a level of proficiency. That's how we help stem the tide of language loss, is creating a level of proficiency. We're not naive in saying that we're going to revitalize the language by creating completely fluent speakers, but we are going to give them a level of proficiency that they've never had the opportunity to achieve before within a school system. So we'll provide native students at EPIC the opportunity to take a world language course in their or a native language to strengthen their cultural ties. An example from this from a student in my class just commented the other day that her taking the exploratory course that I'm offering in the Muskogee Creek language, I know the family that she came from, back home from around Seminole. She lives in Oklahoma City. As a result of taking this course, she's now dug deeper into her culture and reconnected, and I don't know why it shocked me. It shouldn't shock me, but those stories, they still surprise me, and it just reminds me of the importance of what we're doing. In addition to just serving our Native students, we serve all EPIC students, giving them the opportunity to take a world language, a Native language for world language credit to make those relevant cultural connections. We live in a state with 39 federally recognized tribes with over 300,000 tribal enrolled citizens. Externally, we're going to help tribes, as we said, reach more tribal members with their language. Assist tribes in the digitization of language materials. Some tribes do have a digital database. Of those tribes that do have that database, it's not very accessible. The majority of tribes do not have a digital database. We can help assist them in doing that. And then to assist tribes with language teacher certification if needed through our innovative UTeach program. The three learning models that we are targeting right now are one-to-one, asynchronous, and our academy model. Again, some of these are just kind of place of name holders. Our one-to-one, so we did the planning and exploratory course this year in the Muskogee Creek Seminole language. Next year, we'll do a full implementation of the level 1 for Muskogee Seminole. So the Creek and Seminole nations of Oklahoma both speak the Muskogee language, and also Kelechi, Taplako, and Alabama Kwasati tribal towns speak the Muskogee language. So just to try to clear up any confusion that it does happen. And then we're working with the Sauk language, which is spoken by the Sac and Fox Nation of Oklahoma. We're having some discussions right now. We had some significant developments just within the last few weeks with Cherokee Nation. And I don't know if we're going to go to do the level 1 course next year, but the following year looks very promising in adding Cherokee. And then, that's why I mentioned earlier our Native Hawaiian. We are getting direction and guidance from the university, our partnership at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, which has been given the designation of National Native American Languages Resource Center, recognizing their 40, 50 years of experience in indigenous language revitalization. And so that would give us the opportunity to also develop courses in Hawaiian to serve our Pacific Islander students. And then beyond that, years 4 and beyond, it's just the addition, getting more partners. I'm very confident once we come out with this, this initial model and do our due diligence in creating the framework and coursework that really does produce that communicative fluency, that we will start to add in many more tribal partners. Then our asynchronous, so that once we have these courses piloted and vetted, we can move those to an asynchronous platform. So now if a student does not want to make that commitment to doing it for a world language, they have the ability to do it completely asynchronously just to get that elective credit. And then our academy model, we've had a visit with the UCHI Immersion School, the UGHA, and they have 22 students pre-K through 4th, and we have 4 students there that are currently enrolled in EPIC. This immersion school is completely in the UCHI language, and those students take advantage of the virtual resources at EPIC to be able to maintain their education where they're not having to sacrifice one for the other. And it's very exciting to be able to potentially partner with them to be able to help. Kind of got ahead. So I highlighted national partners. Again, the College of Hawaiian Language at UH Hilo, and then also the University of Alaska Southeast and Leporai Ojibwe University in Wisconsin, which those two are recognized as regional Native American language resource centers. Our state partnerships, we have a formalized agreement now with the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, so that's for the Muskogee Seminole language, Sac and Fox Nation of Oklahoma, and then in developing agreements not only with Cherokee, but Chickasaw Nation and Absentee Shawnee Tribe. You guys know what UTeach is, I don't need to explain that. So that's the broader view. So on a language level, what we want to impress upon everybody involved is that, again, this is not just providing a course just for the sake of having a course. It is doing the work on our part to create a program that is going to allow our students to develop that level of fluency that they need. They can be communicative from day one. As Sean knows, and he sat in on the initial class, he was communicative from day one sitting behind the camera, so we know it works. But that is it, and that is our goal. And again, like I said, it is my privilege to serve as your Director of Native Languages. Mado, and does anybody have any questions?
I just have a couple.
Yes.
I have just overall on the Indian programs. Do you guys? I know you reach out to the education departments. Are you also in communication with the Indian Child Welfare? And I say that as a judge, prosecutor, and defender for 5 tribes, that I can't tell you the amount of times where I've either defended or put somebody in a guardianship that where are you going to go or what are you going to do for school? And it's those frontline workers. The education department's great with the grants and programs or whatever, but it's the frontline workers who are putting those children in different homes or transferring from homes, I always tout Epic. And I also, especially with kids that have lost a year or two, to get their credits back. But I would just, as a suggestion, to really reach out, because that is a need across the state of Oklahoma, where you have kids in rural communities that, if, you know, I've used the example before, grandma lives in Little Axe, mom lives in McLeod. Grandma gets guardianship, they're moving to schools. That's not good. And so Epic kind of fills that and builds that, you know, that sustainability and reliability that these children don't have. So I would suggest reach out to the ICW departments. And I was also just out of my own curiosity, like with Sac and Fox, with the juvenile detention center there. And a lot of those, you know, are long-term kind of to get into Sac and Fox, but do we have any sort of relationship? Like, what are they doing for school? And I don't know that as a judge or a prosecutor or defender. If the delinquent is in Sac and Fox or John Brown and Cherokee, I don't know what they do for school.
I think one of the things that's exciting about what we're talking about here, specifically with the digitization piece of this, is that any child department that works hand in hand with us, this is not just proprietary to Epic. This will be proprietary to the tribe as well. And so they will be able to provide this educational piece in terms of curriculum to any of their citizens for free.
Correct, and I'm sorry that I missed that. So our role in this Epic is utilizing our expertise, partnering with the tribes on their language specific, where that is an issue not just within the state of Oklahoma, but nationally, intellectual property rights, where a outside entity builds a curriculum and then turns around and sells it back to the tribe. And they're like, wait a minute, what, this is ours and you're trying to sell it back to us. That's what also makes us unique, is once this is developed, and it's going to take, again, a couple of years, 2 to 3 years to fully develop, and it's for each language, is we turn around and say, right, here it is, distribute it however you see fit. However you want to sub-license it, go ahead and do that.
And Trevor, that could include those small rural schools that you're talking about that fall within that sovereign nation.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So no, I appreciate everything that you do, and that was just what I see on the level of kids, mostly, they're all rural, that are school age. School is always an issue in placement. When they're deprived, or they're delinquent, or whatever it is, they still have to be educated, and Epic fills that hole perfectly. And I don't know if the education departments, they're building and learning towards that, but the ICW, the frontline workers, are the ones that are dealing with these children.
We'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, totally agree. Just make it direct to save this product as fast as we can. It's excellent work. Very impressive. Thank you so much.
And I guess one last acknowledgement, Alicia. She is a rock star for helping us with this grant that we just applied for to help fund this program. And she was amazing helping us to bring this vision together and make it very succinct. And so thank you so much.
I don't think we have anything to approve there, correct? Okay, so we're on to consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody has to pull out? Then I would accept a motion to approve the consent.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Vella?
Yes.
I accept the motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
Yes.